in general, a culture in which there is patriarchal power, where women are not as represented in the legislature, in major professions, where women aren't paid the same as men. That's all a legacy of a belief that men represent human. And there's a wonderful chapter in The Sexual Politics of Meat where I lay out the sort of discriminatory attitudes towards women and how they're linked to seeing women as being closer to animals, the other animals, that we have this sort of hierarchy. We think if we're naive and are human-centered in our feminism, we think our goal is simply to redefine human to include women, that women and men are equal, or women and, that there is not a gender binary, women and men, and non-binary people. We're all equal within the human sphere without looking at what's considered below us hierarchically. But that's not how it works. How we've defined human in most cultures has been weighted or freighted by notions of masculinity and notions of mankind, so that women are often oppressed by seeing us as closer to animals, that our bodily functions make us closer to animals, even though men have bodily functions too. So whenever our sex or gender is seen as different because we're closer to animals, unless we deal with how we look at animals, we are always going to be in a sort of fungible or fragile status as humans. And we're seeing that in the United States. Women's rights have reduced so greatly that a pregnant woman is not protected. They're going to let her die rather than let her have an abortion. In the United States, unless you're in a blue democratic state, doesn't see abortion as health care. And women disappear as anything but the carriers of the fetus. These are all ways of reducing women and denying women equality with men. I think the whole election of Trump shows how threatening equality was. And so failing to look at our fragile status as humans and how it's susceptible to a kind of power that will move us away from being seen as equal, and how that can happen. This has all happened in 3 years since Dobbs, since Pornography of Meat was published. So any attitude that considers women as livestock or animalizes women is benefiting from the lower status of animals. And the other reason is because of feminism that is only looking at self in terms of human rights without looking at how a feminist perspective is going to inform us about the environment that we need within a feminist movement, and a feminist perspective within the environmental movement. Well, animals are right there in the middle of all that. Certainly, this is ecofeminism. I think feminism at this point desperately needs to adopt as many ecofeminist principles as possible, because the United States is not going to deal with the environmental crisis. I mean, back to your friends who are eating meat, my God, every time they're eating meat, they are contributing to the climate crisis. Veganism is a climate activism at this point, especially because this huge, elephant in the room, to use a speciesist metaphor, is the United States turning back all the climate successes we had. Everybody has to take this seriously, and feminism has to see itself within a larger framework at this point.